No game I've decided to make a video on in this series has been more unlikely to actually get a sequel than this game. That only makes me want it to get a sequel more though, because let's be fair, a lot of the time we want most what we will likely never obtain, like spiritual fulfillment. Or is that just me? Anyways, I shall not dwell longer on the unlikely nature of a sequel to the Somnium Files, and instead focus on what that unlikely sequel should be if it ever comes to fruition, because I've got some ideas for Mr. Kotaro Uchikoshi. For those unaware, the Somnium Files is a visual novel murder mystery game directed and written by Kotaro Uchikoshi and developed and published by Spike Chunsoft. The game met with critical praise and commercial silence, but hey, if Shenmue can get sequels, maybe the Somnium Files can too. The game takes place in Tokyo and stars Kaname Date, a detective that can dive into people's dreams to find information that is unobtainable through more traditional means of police work. It's a truly wonderful game with amazing gameplay, a great premise, and you likely know this if you're watching this video. But if you somehow don't, I have a video specifically on why you should play it, that you should check out now. Why now? Because this video is not spoiler free for the Somnium Files, so if you plan on playing this game at any point, it makes sense to leave now and come back once you've played it. Now that we're left with the enlightened people who have played the game and those who do not care about spoilers for one reason or another, let's get into the real meat of the video. For a game with multiple endings, there usually would be a problem with a sequel between picking which ending would become canon. Thankfully for us though, that ending has already been chosen in the form of the golden ending you can only get by completing all the other paths, so that would be where the game would proceed from. However, it was not that path that gave me the idea for a sequel, but a different path. There's one path where someone else takes Date's usual role and dives into someone else's Somnium. In fact, they dive into Date's Somnium, and that person is the character I believe should take over as the lead protagonist of the next game in the series, Mizuki Okiura. This choice is likely unsurprising to anyone who has heard me talk about my love for Mizuki, but I also think there are more unbiased reasons Mizuki makes sense as the next protagonist. Those reasons are as follows. 1. Mizuki already has shown the capability to sync. 2. She has been training with Date already, and this would be a logical next step in her development. And 3, she would absolutely be a compelling point of view character given her background and mystery surrounding her. I'll try to elaborate on each of these reasons, although at least the first one should be self-explanatory. She managed to sync with Date successfully in her route, helping wake him up. One could argue that the experience doesn't carry over to the golden ending timeline, but other skills and information have transcended those differences, and at the very least it demonstrates she has the capacity to learn in the future. The second part relates to her training. After being bullied at school, Date started training Mizuki in martial arts, which she turned out to be unbelievably good at. More on that later. In numerous moments across several routes, she also served as a sort of protege investigator when tagging along with Date. I think it would be natural for her to slide into a role as part of Abyss as she continues to follow in Date's footsteps with his guidance, of course. Not that she would admit that, of course. She still wants to hit him with something. Finally, 3. Mizuki has endured a lot in her young life. Abusive or neglective parents who were then murdered, a run-in with a serial killer, social isolation from her peers, and having to deal with Date as a surrogate father. Some tough times indeed. She also has her unexplained, almost super strength that could be explored or could remain a mystery, who knows. She has a lot that she should work through that certainly would come up as she becomes a young adult, which is the time frame I'm thinking for this next game. Seeing someone struggle with their personal demons and past while trying to fight crime at the same time, I think would make for a compelling arc. Now that I've established the main character though, 2 major questions emerge. 1. What is the new premise for the game? And 2. What's going on with Date in this new game? Between 6 and 8 years after the events of the first game, Mizuki Okiura is the newest member of the Advanced Brain Investigation Squad. As she begins her new job though, new information comes up tied to her parents Shoko and Renju in the course of investigating a new killing. Mizuki is, of course, eager to find out more, and is encouraged with some reservations by the new boss of Abyss, Kaname Date. See, that's where Date is. He became boss after Boss was promoted to a higher role for her work in the new Cyclops serial killings. However, Mizuki may be too close to aspects of this case, so Date must assign her a partner to make sure she can stay rational. And hey, what's more rational than an AI? That's right, Mizuki's new partner for this case is Aiba, helping keep Mizuki level-headed while also dishing some dirty secrets about Date in the process. Can you tell I really want Aiba and Mizuki to team up? Well, if you couldn't before, you know now! Anyways, that is the premise for the game, and it would explore Mizuki's psyche as her worldview and certainties about her parents are called into question. We already got a sense of this in the original game with the shady dealings in both Renju and Shoko's past. Of course, we would get returning characters from major characters like Iris to supporting characters like Pewter, who Mizuki has a bit of a strange relationship to given Pewter's relationship to Renju. Plus new characters who, of course, I can't talk about because they're new. On the whole, though, I think that sets up for a nice continuation of the story while also doing a good job progressing the characters in the intervening time. What about gameplay, though? Would anything change with regards to that? Well, of course it would. It's been a few years, so technological advancements are inevitable. My first thought is for a new system that blocks the transfer of mines through the sink if you stay in more than 6 minutes. Now the limit has been extended, which could allow for longer sinks and more complex puzzles in the various Somniums that would populate the game. The second innovation is the ability for a dual sink, allowing both Mizuki and Aiba to enter the Somnium at the same time. This addition could allow for some puzzles where you need to use both characters to clear a particular stage, which I think could be an amazing way to change up the gameplay. Otherwise though, I liked the system the Somnium files had going for it, and they could always include more investigation scenes like in the first game. The QuickTime events though I could take or leave, but if they did stay in, they'd have to involve Mizuki's trusty pipe instead of a gun. Other than the Somnium additions, I don't have many ideas on how to change the other gameplay. Obviously, they'd have to keep all the amazing observations when interacting with objects and spaces, but for the most part then, I think they should keep much of the gameplay loop the same, which I think most people will be fine with. On the presentation side, I think the same point stands. I would change very little. The art style is great, the music suits the game well, and the voice acting is practically perfect in every way, so no need to change that. Perhaps with more development time though, and familiarity with the character models, they could make the animation smoother, but as I noted in my regular eye video, I'm not all that fussed about it. Now, as for when this game would theoretically come out, I'm just not going to say anything because, as I said at the beginning, it is very unlikely to happen in the first place, and even if it did, whatever guess I made would be way off base. At least judging by my current track record of predictions for these videos. I blame the next generation consoles for screwing up the timeline on game sequels. I'm just going to say if it's out by the year 2050, I'll be delighted. Then I can play it on my PS10 or Nintendo 4DS. I look forward to that day, and I hope and pray that it does indeed happen. One way to ensure it does happen though is to buy the first game to convince them to make another, so if you haven't, please do it. I hope you enjoyed this somewhat rambling, but hopefully coherent video on my vision for what an the Somnium Files sequel would look like. If you did, please leave a like on the video and comment below what you think a Somnium Files sequel should be. Subscribe for more video game content, although unfortunately no Shovel Forge, sorry Iris, and I hope you have a great day and happy gaming.